Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom looks like Nintendo's last major swan song when it comes to massive first-party system-selling games for the Nintendo Switch. But that doesn't mean that there isn't big changes that are coming after the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And some of the stuff that we've seen that caused some problems. This game is absolutely being looked at as a case study for what Nintendo could be doing in the future, not only for the Zelda series, but also for how they distribute things. But before we get into that, please make sure you guys check out the link in the description. We do have a giveaway going down for the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch OLED right now. And all you got to do is check out the community post, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, go vote on your favorite Legend of Zelda game of all time. Drop a comment on there. Let me know. I will be picking a winner on May 12th, and we will also be having a live stream of the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on May 12th as well. So it's going to be a extravaganza here on the channel. I recently just got that Nintendo Switch OLED in, so I'm very happy about that. So it is ready to go, ships worldwide. Now let's go ahead and get back into what we're talking about here with the big problem with the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and how Nintendo is going to address this problem going forward in the future. So what we do know is that the game leaked. We know that. It's been out there. Obviously, we've had tons of people talking about it. It's leaked. People are playing it. People are emulating it. People are pirating it. Whatever the case is, however you want to lay it out. Right now, people are playing the game when obviously Nintendo does not want anybody to be playing the game outside of, I don't know, maybe they're testers or people within Nintendo. And we've seen this trend happen quite a bit on the Nintendo Switch. It happens actually all the time for every single major game, whether it's a big title like The Legend of Zelda or it's a smaller end title like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 for them. You know, not a title that's going to sell like 10 million copies plus, but even games like that leak. Pretty much everything's been leaking well before launch, at least a week or 2 weeks before launch. And essentially what happens here, these physical copies go out to certain stores, usually in different countries, and somebody gets them or a person gets them from like a retail store, or they just dump it online so people can download it. And that's obviously creating headaches and all sorts of issues for Nintendo. And I do think that some people obviously are being very sensitive to that, right? They're not covering the spoilers. They're saying, hey, we're not going to do that. We're going to wait till May 12th. Other people are obviously not. And I'm not here to discuss or argue the ethics or morals of that. If you want to do whatever you want to do, that's on you. That's not on me. I'm waiting till the official release so I can check out the game and play it on the Nintendo Switch and give my impressions on the actual hardware and how it is from a perspective of the gameplay and the graphics and the frame rate and everything else. What I'm talking about is what Nintendo's going to do in the future because of these leaks. Usually with the physical copies of the game, if you remember, Super Smash Brothers had the same issue and everybody just put out all the different, stuff online in terms of different things. So it's a problem. So one of the solutions that I actually saw a very interesting person put out there, Kit from the Kit and Krista podcast. He is a former employee of Nintendo. I also have worked with him before in the past. He's a very cool dude. And on Twitter, he had a very interesting tweet. He said this about the leaks. Quote, "Remember how Metroid Prime Remastered managed to be a huge surprise by having a digital first, physical later release? Have to wonder if that's being discussed as a plan for major releases going forward after what happened recently." He said today, but it's recently, for the leak of The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And that is a proposition. That is something that Nintendo is probably looking at. I responded saying, I think that could probably hold back sales when it comes down to it, because people want to get it day and date, or people buy digital and physical. So there could be a held back sales factor to that. But at the same time, it's something that Nintendo is probably looking into. Now, the rest of the industry, at least not everybody, but some people have already adopted that. Like if you have the EA Play or if you have the Ubisoft, whatever, you can play the game, I think like 3 days early before it goes to the retail stores or before it's available for everybody. But I'm guessing those physical copies are still shipped right around that time and they're not leaked because of just the architecture and what they do on Xbox and Sony compared to what Nintendo has. So I think that it's going to be a multifaceted thing. I think it's going to be from Nintendo, obviously their security standpoint, from their hardware standpoint, they've got to get that shirt up. And I know that they try really hard to get that, but it seems like stuff is cracked or something is beaten in terms of the security, like instantly. As soon as the system launches, it's already beaten. So I think that obviously Nintendo has to cover that basis. They have to get that under control first and foremost. But I do think that even having it to where, hey, the digital version comes out at this time. Then the physical version comes out a bit later. We're going to ship those a little bit later in order to stop the leaks, because at the end of the day, you know, there are a lot of people that are going to run into spoilers. There are people on YouTube that are putting spoilers in their thumbnails. There are people out there that are just putting information out there on the internet and somebody runs across it and it's spoiled for them. So that's not good for the fans overall. That's not good for everyone. It's good for some people who just want to get the game and do it for themselves or whatnot, but it's not good for everybody else who wants to have the hype and experience the game day one when it's supposed to release. So I do think that Nintendo is absolutely going to look into that and look into ways. Now, whether they're going to do this situation where they're going to have a digital first release and then have it physical later. I mean, we didn't hear any type of leaks or anything with Metroid Prime Remastered because it was only digital. Now, the release of Metroid Prime Digital was a huge thing. People absolutely loved the surprise drop, and the fact that it wasn't physical at first was almost forgiven because it's like, okay, they're dropping this right there at the Nintendo Direct. Obviously, the physical versions aren't going to be there in store. People aren't going to be able just to rush out there and go get it. So it made absolute sense. People were hyped to play the game. It had been rumored for a very long time. So it makes sense there. Obviously, you wouldn't have that same dynamic for a major title like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom or like a big Mario Kart game. But I do think that it could work in some sense because Metroid Prime did work, and that might have been a test run for doing something like that and maybe even getting out of these early leaks for their games and the fans having to essentially duck and dodge every single spoiler they can online. Now, there was some issues with the physical copy of Metroid Prime Remastered and the amount that was out there, which Nintendo did rectify somewhat soon, but at the same time, that wouldn't happen if it was a major scale game. They'd have a lot more copies ready to go on the ship date that they wanted to have. So I don't think that would be an issue. Now, there would be backlash from fans because there is still a very large contingent of physical Nintendo Switch fans where that is their primary way of playing games is through physical copies. This is not like Xbox and Sony where it's shifted all the way over to like a 70, 30, or even I think maybe even 80% or higher on Xbox where it's all about digital. Nintendo Switch, it still seems like it's about overall about 50-50 or so, but there's so many digital games. Obviously, digital is going to overpower when it comes down to it because the overwhelming majority of games on the Nintendo Switch are actually digital, not physical. There's already over 4,000 plus games on the system, with just so many of those being digital, so it makes sense in that way. But it's still the highest threshold of physical game sales on the market. That's still a lot, so Nintendo's probably going to handle this obviously very carefully when they do it. Maybe there's certain games where they do this, other games that they don't, but they have to get a hold of this leaking situation that is going down on the Nintendo Switch, because it's no fun when you have to avoid those leaks for 2 weeks or so beforehand. So something needs to be done about those physical copies or the digital or what happens, because this is not good enough. There's been too many times where there's too many leaks and there's too many issues, and that's probably what Nintendo is thinking about when they go into what they're going to be doing next, especially after The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, as I do think it's going to be the last huge major type of game in terms of huge system seller type of game on the Nintendo Switch. Now, there's still other big games coming. Metroid Prime 4 is coming. Pikmin, that's going to be coming as well. There's going to be some other surprises. There should be some remasters. There's Baten Kaitos. There's other games coming as well, but I think Tears of the Kingdom is probably going to be the biggest game left over. That is a launch officially just for the Nintendo Switch. There could be some cross-gen stuff. I do think Nintendo will have cross-gen games even next year or the year after, whenever they do decide to reveal the Nintendo Switch 2 or whatever they're doing next. So I do feel that it's a delicate balance, but they have to do something on that, and Tears of the Kingdom and the leak that happened here might be the final catalyst that gets them to say, okay, we're going to try this with another major system seller release or a big release, but we're going to have to wait to see, because we don't know what technology Nintendo's going to be using for the next gen Nintendo Switch. We don't know what they're going to be doing to cut down on these leaks or anything like that. So it's still up in the air with that. Now, moving on to some other big topics with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I've been keeping you guys updated when it comes to the sales on Amazon, and there has been a brand new breakthrough with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, usually on here, we have these Roblox gift cards, we have these PSN, we have the Xbox Switch on all of them, and those always do really well because people don't want to put their credit cards into these machines and have things stolen. So those are some of the biggest drivers of the gaming business over there with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo, and it's very hard for a game on the bestsellers to actually beat them out. But here's an update though, guys. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom has actually beat out those cards. This has been a steady climb all the way to the top of the charts here. And once again, when I talk about this, guys, it's because it's going to be incredibly relevant when the day one sales come out, or when the first month, or whatever Nintendo decides to talk about. It's usually not the day one sales, I'm sorry about that, but when the first days of sales come out. Now, Nintendo might announce it. If it's a massive number, we could see something like they did with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is a game that was not reviewed anywhere near as well. They still came out and said, hey, this broke a record 10 million in 3 days. I don't know if The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is going to get that high, because that's an all-time Nintendo record with that. Nintendo's had some big games. However, I do feel that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom could do 10 million in the first week or two. Like, it could be right up there. Maybe not the first 3 days, but it could be very much up there in the first week or two at 10 million plus or so, because we are seeing the remnants of that. We are seeing signs of that massive growth in sales from what we usually don't see with a lot of games out there. And also, if you look at it, the hype is at an all-time high. You have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch OLED at number 5 on the bestsellers. Then when you go over to the new releases, that's always been number 1. But then you have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Digital Edition is at number 5 on the Amazon bestsellers. If that doesn't tell you that hype is building to an all-time high, I don't know what that tells you. And that's probably going to be a lot of people who are buying a digital copy and then also buying a physical copy, keeping that sealed, and then buying a digital copy. So definitely some double dippers on there. But to see a digital version on Amazon be up at the number 5 spot is incredibly rare. You just don't see that. And I've been looking at these Amazon sales charts to help or aid in my sales predictions. For the most part, I've been getting them right when it comes to stuff like Metroid Dread, or when it comes to Astral Chain, Bayonetta, Splatoon 3, Pokemon. These all helped out, along with other things that we're going to talk about right here, right now. And that is this COMG. I do want to talk about a slight mistake that I made on my previous reporting of the COMG in Japan, which is just about 14 retail chains or so. Basically, what it amounts to is that a good chunk, but not everything with the sales, they total up the pre-orders, and you can kind of gauge where a game could start out in Japan. And shout outs to my man Pierre over on Twitter, who rounds up all of this. I did state that it's above the pre-orders or above Splatoon. That is not the case at this point. That is not the case. It's still below it, but it's gaining very fast. It's gaining on Animal Crossing New Horizons at 516 COMG pre-order ranking, and then Splatoon 3 at 554. The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is at 500. Now, this is far above any other Legend of Zelda game by far. It's beaten out that, because remember, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, it is a massive franchise. We know Zelda's a massive franchise, but in Japan, it hasn't been as popular as it is in the rest of the world. It wasn't until The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, that is the game that broke through and really expanded the popularity of Zelda in Japan, because of the creative and unique way that you can play the game. It opened it up to that Minecraft generation. It opened it up to the generation that are playing these newer end type of games, and it brought back the older generation that loved the original Legend of Zelda, The Legend of Zelda A Link to the Past, these more open-ended adventure-based Zelda games. So I do feel that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is on track to even exceed those expectations that people set for Breath of the Wild and the sales for that game, because the COMG, it is charting it very high here. Now, will it pass up Animal Crossing? I think it has a very good chance. It's close. It's only 16 off in terms of COMG, and then Splatoon 3 about 54 off when you align them all up together. So this is a very good list to be on. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, Monster Hunter Rise, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Splatoon 3, and Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, it's not going to reach the levels of maybe Super Smash Bros. Or Monster Hunter Rise or Pokemon, because Pokemon was just insane at over 1,241 COMG rating, but I do feel that this newfound boost is going to be one of the determining factors to have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom outsell The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because it's going to have a massive and bigger bump in Japan, more popularity, and also more brand recognition because of what Breath of the Wild did for those sales. You combine on top of that what we've already discussed with the Amazon sales charts and the hype going into this, and how the fact that May is pretty much by itself. This is the game of May for anyone to play out there. There's not really anything else huge coming out. Street Fighter's the month after, Street Fighter's a little bit later, also Final Fantasy's a little bit later. When it comes to Switch, it's pretty much just Zelda, and then Pikmin's a couple months off. So this is going to be a huge launch. People are getting even more hyped. I mean, despite the leaks being bad, people are getting even more hyped and going out there and pre-ordering the game even more now at this point. So this is absolutely good to see, and I see The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom having an incredible launch in Japan. Over 1 million plus, I think, is going to happen, which is by far the record in Japan, with the best previous launch was Ocarina of Time with like 300,000 units plus. So this is going to blow it out of the water here, and I'm very excited to see how it all ends up. But what do you guys think about everything here when it comes to the news? Let me know in the comment section. Make sure you check out our giveaway link in the description below. It will be there. We're giving away Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch OLED, and we have more Legend of Zelda giveaways that are going down pretty much all year right here on the channel. You're going to want to make sure that you subscribe. Also, check out some of our other Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom videos. We are cooking here when it comes to Zelda, Nintendo Switch RPGs. It's all right here on screen. You can check it out when you get the opportunity. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it, and we'll see you for the next video. Peace.